Good afternoon and welcome to United TV. Today is August 30th, 2024. My name is Kemal Erkan. I'm here with Sean Donovan. So we are right before the Labor Day weekend. So as we are getting ready for that, we have only 1 week left for the primaries in Delaware. So we're going to cover different topics, but we're going to start with the U.S. Politics first, and then we'll focus on the Delaware. Sean, how are you doing?
Correct. I'm doing good now that I got my camera on. You see my tan from the beach earlier this week. And then, yes, you mentioned we're now going into already September, Labor Day weekend. Again, summer is already flown by. Football season started. The year coming to a close almost. So excited to be moving forward into September here. As you mentioned, we are going to be going over some of the U.S. Updates first. So we have a little bit of news, just high-level stuff, nothing too specific, but I just want to keep everyone up to speed with what's going on there. So as I get this video playing here, on the economic side, we do see that the mortgage rates are dipping a little bit. We know that they actually had spiked the high sevens, even touching low eights. Again, it all depends on what your credit score is, the length of the loan term, down payment, all that type of stuff. But it is a good sign that they are dipping low. It's the lowest as of April of 2023. So it's been a long time coming there, but still nothing like what it was during that pandemic time and immediately after the pandemic, where it was down in the mid twos, low threes.
So this is since April 2023, the lowest since April.
Yeah, so over a year.
Yeah. So the 6.44. So I remember right before pandemic, it was 2.9, 3.1.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So this is the new norm. I mean, if you remember, we shared the U.S. National debt. That's now 35 trillion.
Yes.
So unless something drastic happens, I don't think this is going to change.
No, I mean, I feel like at historical times back, I think it was maybe like in the 80s, the highest ever was like up to like 18 or like 22% or something at that really high spike. But at that time, you know, look at what the average household income was versus the cost of the house. And what you're seeing now is that even though the interest rates may be lower, you know, even like 6.5% now, the cost of the house is like 4 to 5 times what someone would make in a year. So that's where that difficulty is, kind of hitting that middle class, as we discussed in previous sessions regarding housing and economic focuses. That's what's making it so difficult, is that gap between how much you actually have to save and how long you have to work. So that's why you end up paying much more in the long run, because even though it's a lower interest rate, the actual house price is just so much higher. So what you're borrowing is just a lot compared to what you're normally bringing home for the average person in a year.
One of the other thing is how actually certain things are being affected by our financial policies is and another big element, really important element, is the BRICS. And BRICS now is going to make a huge impact on the decision that we have, the things that we are able to do in the past that we are not able to actually leverage as much. And it's been more than 2 years we've been talking about it. Still, a lot of people don't really understand why it's important, but it is important. It's going to make a big difference for what we are able to do and how we can actually make certain decisions to actually change some of these outcomes that we see. Now, if the currency is not powerful, or if you're not able to control it, then you're not going to be able to have the same, you're not going to be able to do the same policies, follow the same policies. So the game is totally changing.
Yeah, and I think another thing too, like you just mentioned, a lot of people maybe aren't even aware of it, because you know, if you're worried about if you're gonna be able to pay the electric bill this month, or you're gonna be able to have groceries for the family, I think when you have such a micro focused, like your needs and you know where your next meal is going to come from type thing, you probably don't have the opportunity to even have that leisure of thinking about things in a grand scheme, a global market, what countries in South America are using for their trade, internationally. So I think most people maybe aren't aware, don't follow it just based on um, what their focus is and what's actually occupying their day-to-day lifestyle and what they're focused on with their immediate wants and needs. But definitely something to keep our eyes on. As you mentioned, it's been 2 years now.
Yeah, we've been actually looking into that for a long time. It's going to be an interesting time for us. So hopefully we won't be seeing worse than what we already have.
No, and I think as you mentioned, interesting time. Also, stock markets and even global markets do definitely feel the impact of the U.S. elections every time it's a presidential election. So as we know, 2024, we do have that coming up. I think right now it's kind of like that calm before the storm, where the market did dip a little bit the past week, then went right back up and corrected. So
I thought you were going to report back on my portfolio. What happened to
on the percentage? Well, the blue chip dividends are definitely still the place to be. Again, do your own due diligence, but I think blue chip dividends are safe and will grow and hopefully beat the average return of 8%.
So is my portfolio down now since the last time we
Green,
called?
green like this room, like
It
the
is.
studio we're in.
It's green.
That's right. Yeah, the tech stocks were obviously the big push in the past year or so. Like Nvidia, making the AI microchips and everything, definitely have a big weight on the S&P and how the entire market is going. So they did beat their earnings that was released the other day, but stock did dip a little bit, but then right back up. So again, most people, if you don't have the ability to follow this or whatnot, it's good just to have even just a general level knowledge of how things interact and work. Because
and also, like, even if they don't have the full understanding, they should have a financial advisor, and they should meet maybe if it's not once, it would be better to have like twice a year, so then they have an idea where everything is going.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So one of the things too, just on the high level, was like I mentioned, the presidential does have impact on the economy and what we're seeing there. So we were covering this back even when Joe Biden had dropped out, and it looks like Kamala Harris would be the Democratic candidate going forward against Trump. So we are seeing that they had some debates still scheduled for September. We know that the Kamala and VP Walz had their first, I think, public interview the other day.
That was last night or the day?
I think it was last.
Yeah. I saw a little bit of it, so I'll wait after the primaries. I'm not allowed to talk about Kamala after the primaries.
Yeah.
Until after the primaries. So.
But yeah, definitely a lot going on there, and it will impact everyone. Again, even on the global scale, and also very down to what's happening in your home, what the gas price is going to be at your local gas station. So lots to follow. As I mentioned, we're going into September now, so it's kind of all coming down. We're almost at election time in November for the presidential, and the primaries, like you mentioned, September 10th for Delaware State. I think that's kind of one of the next topics we're going to go into here, but we also want to cover the news on this. So the fact that we try to give updates on what's going on here, specific to Delaware, but also a little bit on that grand scheme like we just did here at the beginning, and kind of where our place is in relation to the actual journalism and media that's actually covering or attempting to cover these types of things.
All right, so tell us about what's happening with Tim Walz.
So we actually jumped.
Why do we have a problem with him? Like, do we not like him?
Well, he's the VP.
No, but that's why do we not?
Well, I think the news clip that we had there was regarding his military experience and claiming to have retired at a specific level of rank that he wasn't actually at during his time of retirement.
What was the reason for the retirement?
I don't know specifically. I know it said that right as he was retiring, his, I guess, troop whatever was being deployed. But
so he's like, remember that FBI guy who made the report, and then when the news was out there, they're like, former FBI agent. Well, that shouldn't be a credit to him. So former is that means he's no longer with that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, I mean, obviously
I
it was
would
a
question
legit.
why he was. Why that this is for the other guy. Like he had to leave the FBI because he was asked to leave the FBI. So then, but it's kind of funny when news are covering things. Oh, the former FBI. I'm like, former? Oh, like he's
Yeah.
not Jordan. So
It's like if you were like a chef or something, you weren't making any good food, you no longer could be a chef. You want to say, the former chef.
right, former chef.
You weren't cooking too hot. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, in any type of campaign, there's always back and forth with they try to get any like skeletons in anyone's closet or where they may have not done the most perfect, action at that time. So I think you'll see both of that going on both sides of um, both him, Walz, and also Vance on the Republicans. So as to be expected, I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. It's campaign season. So, um, but as you were mentioning though, with the journalism in Delaware, that's where we had this second video coming in here. So I think what we want to highlight here was the lack thereof, or maybe the timeliness of certain things coming out. If you wanted to start us off with.
So declining journals in Delaware. So why do we want to talk about? So well, as you guys know, I'm a registered journalist. Someone can bring my ID from the office, but you don't have to. But I am. Uh, but of course, I'm not a journalist. Like I don't practice. Like this is not my job. This these two,
Sorry, interviewing.
these two TV programs, the YouTube programs that we have is helping us to put our voice out there, like being able to voice our opinion. So now I was able to get hold of some news 3 weeks ago, right? So then, and I'm waiting until the issue became public so that we could share. And Thursday night, I'm referring back to Matt Meyer's sexual harassment case. And Thursday night, I knew about it. It was public, but then I thought there was going to be like a big like headline, like breaking news, because in the past that's how it used to happen with newsjournal. So I waited, nothing's happening. Next day, nothing's happening. Next day, nothing's happening. So first we talked about it. So then when you have to wait 5 days, when you have one of the most heated governor race in the Delaware's history, and one of the candidates is being sued for sexual harassment, and this is not actually being covered in the news, then I kind of question that. I'm like, hey, is this just because this guy has so much money, so he's actually shutting them down, or is it another problem? So I have one of my well-trusted friend. We had this conversation, and his take was, "Well, Kemal, things are not safe anymore." So in the courtroom, we used to have reporters in the past, and we don't have them anymore. So, and by the time something is being filed, and then by the time someone picks it up, it can take several days uh, until that thing becomes a headline. Well, that's a huge problem. So something that happened 5 days ago, and then we still don't know about it, and it's a public knowledge, that's a huge problem for journalism. So, but we kind of want to see why we are at this point, I guess. Well, I mean, the Delaware's media was never so impressive anyway. So best option you have is news journal, and then it only gives you one or two rights to read something, uh, unless you can copy paste what you have in case you need to make references. And if you don't want to pay the monthly uh, subscription, so the thing is, there's not much to read. So that's why I'm not paying. It's not like I'm shying away from.
We'll get a Dear Abby column in there so people can write in their stories.
Right, but I mean, you can do that anywhere anymore, right? So that you don't need a newspaper to do it. So then I think the quality of the journalist is now is not at the same level as it was before.
Yeah.
I think they're not also making enough money either.
Well, I think a part of that is obviously with the times. I mean, obviously technology's been around, but what we're seeing is so many people are getting their immediate news notifications, and even like on your phone, you'll get like ESPN will say, this team just scored in overtime and the game's over. And it just happened 30 seconds ago, and you're already getting that notification. Whereas what you're saying, where they have actual journalists in a courtroom listening to a case being presented, for example, and then having to go back, type that up, and then get it published, where I'm thinking back to that, like in my mind, I'm seeing like somebody's, even like a paper boy riding the bike route, throwing the newspaper, you've seen the headline for the day, where back in the day, people would wait until that next morning to see what is actually happening. Think about on subways, in the city, people walking taxis, everyone having newspapers. That's where their main source of information was coming from. But now I think it's just so heavily on social media, where yes, you can get it immediately, but also even we used to cover this. Some of the things that are being released are just totally inaccurate, false. Like once you look into it, it's like, oh, this never happened. This is a made-up video. The video's from 8 years ago.
Yep.
I think it was even during the earthquake. They were showing you like buildings falling from
10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think that obviously has an impact on kind of what's happening there. It's the coverage.
So, well, this is of course like the form of the media, like with the digital media and the clickbait. This is actually making things more difficult to become like a story rather than just here's, you click on this. When you click they put some headline and then you have to kind of do 12 clicks to get to the actual news.
Yeah.
So then because every time you do that,
right?
You see some ad and then no one is actually, I think that's one of the most annoying things on the internet is those pop-up ads. No one is actually buying anything from them. But I think the lack of local resources and expertise, I think this wouldn't apply to Delaware as much because we, in the last 60 years, two terms vice president and one term president is from Delaware. You would think that there would be more investment in terms of the local resources in Delaware, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So what about social media?
Yeah, so I think as we have this third screen here talking about social media, so one of the examples that you wanted to bring up was the interactions that you can at least see on people's postings. So obviously we're looking at this particular case, candidates running for governor, right? Mm-hmm. So the three main ones, you have Collin, Bethany, and then Meyer. So these are the people who would be most involved, I guess, with their community, trying to get their campaign message out there to as many people as they can, trying to persuade voters, hey, this is why you should vote for me, or this is why you shouldn't vote for that person. And I think what you're pointing out here is just the lack of, I guess, interaction or feedback, or just even, I guess, viewership, you could say, on some of this social media participation in our state, where you're saying it is obviously a close, small knit state community, just over 1 million people, state population, but you'd expect to see a little bit more interaction, at least with the people out there who are going to then be voting on one of these candidates. So you'd say whether it's candidate A, B, or C, or if they have a write-in, whoever they're doing, they at least be kind of up to speed with what's happening out there. And I think what we're seeing is that we're not really seeing that as we would expect.
Yeah, no. So that's kind of like, again, concerning if you are expecting to get your news from the traditional media. So the journalism, the other thing that we probably need to mention is the AI. So, right now the AI can write a book. So you can write a book right now and then just give some tips to the AI and then this is what I want to do. And it will write your book. It will write you an article on any issue that you want. So you just need to be knowledgeable of the topic if you want to actually present it somewhere. So then you need to make maybe small changes, but that probably also eliminated a lot of that knowledge-based, opinion-based journalism. So now you put something on ChatGPT and just gives you so many different options. We use it. So
I think even like the human species just gravitates towards the the least difficult route to get anything accomplished or done. So if you have some type of AI generated, software that's going to compute these things for you, why would you go out there and do the nitty grit, attending a courtroom case and taking your own notes, for example, if you have these types of resources available? So just things to keep in mind as you review some of these news.
Right, but don't rely on media anymore. So I think that's gonna come out if you do a little bit more research, and then go to the social media most likely, and then also confirm what you read. But it was a disappointing thing for me when this is a huge news and it's not being covered for 5-6 days. I mean, like if I was a journalist, I would be all over it. Well, I didn't, so I'm a journalist, right? So, but I would actually, if this was my full-time job, that news would be there Thursday midnight. It would be out. So it's kind of like slacking, not impressed. So now, can we actually talk about the social media impact? And then, since we are going to go to the elections, local ones, so the impressions on social media, and I was actually, everyone knows that I work with Bethany. I'm her co-chair for her finance committee, and this is going to be a very close race, not because qualification of the other people are similar to Bethany Hall-Long, just because one of them was able to raise a lot of money, and that's kind of like my first initial reaction was, hey, did this money come from people, and a lot of the people who were individually supporting you, and then how do we see that? One of the reasons that we wanted to cover this journalism issue is because journalism shift into the social media and the digital media. So then you can actually see how much impressions some news is getting. Do they being liked, or do they being retweeted or reposted? So that's how you actually can measure your popularity, right? Fair. So then I'm like, hey, this guy collected this much money. We are talking about Meyer. So I use X/Twitter pretty efficiently when I want it. And then because of this election time, I think I'm using it a little bit more. And I actually wanted to see number of followers, number of tweets, retweets, and likes. If you collect twice more money than the closest person to you, then you should be able to show and substantiate that with the social media interactions. So what have we seen so far is, well, his pinned item, pinned post, like what's pinned post, if you want to explain.
Yeah, so if someone goes on your page, you can pin one of your posts by your own selection on what they will
Twitter,
see.
you can only do one thing. You can only pin one thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So what everyone will see immediately, first post, regardless of when it was from. If you have other ones more recent, that one will appear on the very top.
Right. And he had this is out there for more than a year. And that thing got 88 likes. So think about it this way. So you collect 3 million some money. You think that you are popular and that people are supporting you. Your pinned item, and you can go to his page and see it's there. It's posted on June 6, 2023. And it's 88 likes. It's a promoted item because it has 25,000 impressions. So if you do 25,000 impressions, someone who promotes stuff on Twitter, I know, you would get more than 88 likes. So that means even people who saw this on the promotion didn't like it. So then he shares something. And then if I'm running for the governor, I'm not going to have a page with 5 likes after I post something. So at least his staff should like. Well, I shouldn't blame his staff that you don't like my stuff either when I post.
I don't use Twitter.
Right? Yeah, you do use Twitter. You have one follower. So then he posts something, he gets 9 likes, 9. So that's 1 digit. Um, his big news gets 35 likes. So that means it's really not substantiated with the individual support. I mean, it's just for the analogy purposes. If you remember when Barack Obama was running for president, his funds were coming from individual donations, but then you see that he's right down number one on the Twitter with the followers. So it's substantiated with, okay, here's how many people are supporting me, and then here's how much they are giving me individually, and there's a correlation between the two. Now here, there's no correlation. This kind of makes me feel better, honestly, because I also need to just measure these things to see if this is important for Bethany's campaign or not. And I know that this is just about money being available versus there's no really good, strong support. Now, there's only 1 week left. We'll see this on the elections, on the primaries. But that's probably, hopefully I'm not wrong. So, but I checked his Facebook page as well. So, like, my niche is my Twitter page and my Twitter account. So, like, I only start using Facebook again because of the my older friends who are using Facebook and then who also follow the election news. I mean, but he's not also popular there either. So that means I look at his total number of followers. There's only 3,000. I'm at 6,000, and they're all organic. So I used to have like 19,000 at some point, and then when Twitter cleaned up all the votes, then I went down to 6,000. So I'm kind of comfortable. Like actually, that made me feel better. So I'm just sharing that. So now Matt probably is watching this, and I know he's watching it because his staff is attacking me on Twitter. So he may just buy more people tomorrow. So if you see any irregular activities, that's because he actually acted on what he heard from us. So
So I think you want to switch gears here just a little bit and go on the other side of the table and kind of focus more on our other candidates in the race here. So we have our Bethany Hall. So I think for this, obviously, as you mentioned, you are actively involved in her campaign. You found it for assuming year and a half to like when she declared.
So I was not her finance co-chair until I believe February this year. So I was on the finance committee, but I was not the co-chair. So, but probably 1.5 years.
Yeah. And then obviously during that time, we've had various different people join the show as guests. Bethany obviously multiple times in the past, and being able to get to know her, kind of her background a little bit. I guess maybe this, as you mentioned, election being so close, an opportunity to maybe just one more time highlight some of the things that maybe you feel are her strong points on what maybe sets her aside from other candidates, regardless of what the media or news may have or have not covered up until this point. This would be the opportunity to kind of hear just one more time highlight real type stuff of just pointing out, just reminders in case, we don't want people to have their mind get preoccupied on just so tunnel vision focused on one item here or one item there that you're forgetting the entire grand scope of each candidate.
So if I understand your question correctly, why I'm still with Bethany and what?
Well, basically what her strong points are and why she's.
So, well, for me, the governor is the CEO of the state. So I run a company here, and I'm the CEO of United Medical LLC, United Medical ACO, United Medical Clinic, CRIAS, American Surgery Center, and I work with a group of people, right? So if I were to, okay, so I'm going to give you a different example. So because these are current companies, there was a company that I was also a CEO and partner. It used to be the Hospitalist back in 2011. And when I realized that it was not the right fit for me, um, I decided to leave. So because I'm the managing partner, and then there are 14 internal medicine doctors who were also my partners that time. To do the right thing for them, I told them that I would be hiring my replacement. So, um, and let's say if I didn't own United Medical and if I was uh, working as a CEO, not as an owner CEO, but just a CEO, and if United Medical asked me to hire the replacements, which again I did this that time in 2011, but if it was to happen today, um, so I'm going to look at who's the most accomplished person when they're applying. So if someone just out of college, that's not going to be even considered for this position. Right. Someone who worked as some management level for a couple of years, they are not going to be considered for this position. So I'm going to look at someone who's accomplished as a CEO because it's going to replace me as a CEO. So then my main focus will be between uh, what that person was able to do at the last job, how comparable that job was for the job that they're applying. So that's how we would have that selection process. So to me, it's the same thing here. So I look at three people, right? So Bethany Hall-Long, Meyer, and Collin O'Mara. O'Mara, we didn't know him. Like he's kind of like a bonus. So uh, entitled white kid waiting there. He didn't respond to the second message that I sent him. We invited him here. If he had a story to say and share, he should have been here. He didn't. Fine. So let's look at these two. So one is the lieutenant governor of the state for the last 8 years. Prior to that, she has public service as in the local Senate level and established in that position from the government standpoint. So someone already knows the government very well. And it was a successful government with John Carney partnership, going through the COVID time and then still being able to have growth in this state. She did well. So now that's one accomplishment of her where it separates her from someone like Matt Meyer. The second part of it is she's a nurse. So the nurses are very similar to the physicians. Their training is extremely powerful and then makes, like, in some cases, nurses maybe almost same level as the physicians because the nurse takes care of the patient for the entire day. When the doctor may give orders and see the patient for 10, 15, 20 minutes, but the nurse is the one who's going to let the doctor, hey, this patient is not doing well. Yeah. So doctor is not watching that patient, the nurse is watching that patient. So she's that person. So she's a very good nurse who actually can actually identify the problems, and she does. So then not only that, she takes that to the education side, and she's teaching at University of Delaware. Um, in fact, my nursing director at American Surgery Center, Ashley Hansen, is one of her students. And she was actually in her video for the promotion we had. And that's interesting for her to be able to have uh, those types of accomplishments under her belt. Then you look at how she actually handled the pandemic. I was the CEO of this company, and then I handled the pandemic, and I know I got so many thank you messages from my employees, from my physicians, from my partners that time. There is an urgency, there's a crisis, and then you take actions, and then you make decisions, and then you are hoping that you are making the right decisions. She did it. So she did. Now, um, with all these things, when you look at the social justice and equity, uh, her administration with John Carney is the most diverse administration in this historic state of Delaware. So then you look at the reputation of the person and see what that person is capable of. And like if I tell you something, and if you know that's gonna, you have the feeling of whether or not that's gonna happen. If I promise you something, right? So, and then how do you build that? Is by looking at the reputations and what I did in the past, right? So I give you 10 promises and I did all 10, or maybe I did 8 of them and then 2 of them I couldn't do it because I wasn't able to do it. So then that's my reputation and that's her reputation. So she's able to handle these crises extremely well with, again, partnership with John Carney. Um, then you look at her. I mean, I talked to her, but never before 10 p.m. So she's up. So she's up until midnight, 1 in the morning. Like sometimes, like when I message her, she's like, "Hey, I'm coming back from this event." It's like 11 p.m. And then she still wants to call me. I'm like, "Hey, it's not urgent. So we can just talk the next day." No, no. She's like, "Boom, 12:15." I showed you a couple of those conversations. Hey, she's there. So this is someone who's working still. Like she's 10 years older than me. And I am someone who works 12 to 14 hours a day. And it's not easy to do it. It's not easy to do it consistently. It's not easy to do it um, at her age. And well, she's young, but 60 is still, she's able to do that much. That's not easy. So she has everything that I'm looking for from the qualification, from the accomplishment, from her reputation as a person, like who she is. When you talk to someone, are they just being vague with you, or they're just, giving you the brush up story, or do they really care about what you do? I mean, again, I don't know her for 20 years. I know her only for 3 years. Sure. And in that, she was able to actually uh, build the relationship. So if I have a relationship with her, because she was able to build that from her side. If it was just me, it wouldn't be at the point where it is today. So she invested in these relationships. When she came to the office, she talked to me from day one, right? She didn't have to do that. She didn't have to talk to other people in the office. She didn't have to talk to Ashley. But I look at her and then the way that she's engaging other people, she's she cares about people. So that's then when they start attacking her, that's when I start to love her even more. So this is just it's just me. Like sometimes like when I know that this happened to me with Tigray, with Dr. Erkan, when Tigray was attacked, I was the probably most proud Tigrayan person ever. So people didn't understand why I was doing this. Just because I care about Dr. Erkan, so that I'm going to be uh, advocating for what he does, what he cares. And the same thing with Bethany. So when I see this attack first, I'm like, hey, why are they attacking her? Right. So that was first. So, and that's why one of the things that we do here, and I'm hoping also for our employees who are watching this, you and I, we put this together, and then there are a number of hours that we are investing before we come out and talk about certain things. And in time, what we learn is there's always this hidden agenda on certain things. So anything that's on surface is not what it looks like. What the real thing is under that surface. So to go under that surface, you need to put a little bit extra time and energy in there. And what we see is, hey, there is Phil Shaw. The guy, why is he hating her this much? I question this. So then, oh, he's supporting TransPerfect PAC, but his company name is TransPerfect. But then, why do they hate her? So then I ask this question. Then I look at, oh, okay, so this guy hates Delaware. So then I read more, and then his campaign or the PAC manager, Chris Coffey, uh, who actually desperately kind of stalking me on Twitter. He's my biggest fan these days. And I slap him every time. But he's like saying that, well, we reach out to all three people, all three candidates, and Bethany is the only one who didn't respond. Well, hey, there's a reason we didn't respond. It's because you're a corrupt business and we want to stay away from you and we don't need anything from you. Yes, you may have a couple million to spend on the Delaware elections, but we don't care about that because we have people that we are relying on, not the money. So then this, when I see this, Sean, you also saw the same thing that I have seen. And their partnership, who do they actually support? Why do they support? What's the outcome? What do they expect? Matt Meyer, I invited him again for come and talk about this sexual harassment thing. He's quiet. He's like avoiding the news. He's not addressing. He didn't have a uh, press conference. This is a huge issue now. As a CEO of the state, the governor of the state, when I say CEO, you are the CEO of the biggest employer of Delaware. So then you are incompetent to run the Newcastle County and then have two big sexual harassment cases that actually leads into the more like a pattern, and the place becomes like the safe harbor for predators. And now you are claiming a bigger position. So then that's not going to happen. Then I see why this guy is being supported because he's a puppet and he can be used by anyone who has the money. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that was kind of a long way to answer.
Yes. I think you did very, very thoroughly elaborate on a bunch of different aspects, different areas that she's involved in. And also at the end there, bringing in other candidates and why maybe they are not, in your eyes, the best fit for the state at this moment. I think to follow that up, if you could, in your opinion, maybe like two or three or whatever, what do you think is the most important issues that, I mean, regardless of whoever becomes next donor, what are the most important issues that they should be addressing for the state specifically? So, like I said, Delaware is a unique state, small knit community, only 3 counties, just over 1 million people. But these issues can be felt. There's different issues maybe in Newcastle County as opposed to what's down in Sussex. We talked about this many months ago about the different zoning laws having, I think it was like the gentrification and different issues that maybe are important to someone down in a rural beach community or farmland versus, hey, you're up here in an apartment in Wilmington. I just think as a governor, you have to manage this unique state and the diverse people that make it up. So what would you say, maybe like the 2 or 3 things that they should focus on? I mean, this could be your economy, your education.
So if you recall back in end of 2021, when you started with me on the show, and then early 2022, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I don't need to apologize to people. I don't fill my own gas like for my car. So I have someone who's helping me. Thank you for that. And, but I'm not going to apologize for having resources available to me, right? Problem is, I was kind of disconnected with the real life situations. What I mean by that is, I didn't know how much the gas cost. So the last time I filled the filled up the car, it was I think $2 per gallon. So, and then I think it was with you or maybe right before you. So I started taking pictures of the Shell gas stations price signage. And I'm like, it's $4.75. And I'm like, I remember this is supposed to be $2, right? So, and it wasn't like 10 years ago. So it was maybe 12 months before that. So the reason I started getting the ads because of the pandemic, the resource wasn't available to me. So then I had to do my own stuff a little bit. And I go there and then $100 wasn't enough to fill the car. That never happened. And I knew there was something going on. So that was my awakening. But then we start focusing on other things. and then you were there since day one. We went to the supermarket. I asked a couple of my friends to also send me different pictures or different videos from different supermarkets in Delaware. And the shelves being empty, things being so expensive, supply chain issue, and the economy has to be the number one problem that we need to not only just take care of it, but take it under control. Because right now everything is so expensive. And I've been here for 25 years. In my other country for 25 years of my first 50 years, I live with inflation. I know how to do certain things under the inflation environment. But this country is different, and managing the inflation and living with inflation has different dynamics. So when the income doesn't go up, if the inflation is up every 3 quarters, so then every quarter, so you are actually able to afford less and less and less. Most people are, if you ask them, they are going to complain about how expensive everything is. So the economy has to be number one. The healthcare and education, I'm not going to put them number two and number three, but I think that they will tie in the second place because they are equally important and they are equally costly for the state of Delaware. So we spend 1/3 of the budget for healthcare. For another 1/3, I believe, is for the education. Now, healthcare is important for the work that we do already. We know from firsthand. So how resources may not be the best used if you don't have good coordination with the outpatient practices, with the hospitals, and also looking at the hospital cost, understanding the hospital cost, the drug, pharmaceutical costs. All these are so important. But then education has a different impact. Someone who doesn't have kids, I'm able to put the education as like a time with healthcare, not because you don't need to really have kids to understand that education is one of the most important elements of the society that we live in. So if you look around and then see people who are doing drugs, who are not able to find jobs, qualified jobs, who are homeless. I mean, how many patients we do a case conference and then someone has an insurance, but they're homeless at the same time. So, I mean, you are there in those meetings. So we actually see a lot of the problem comes from the education system. So if you don't have a good support, which is actually, again, with the education system, you actually look at how that's going to impact the diversity. So then if you have a strong public education, people who should be in certain positions will be in those positions if the public education is strong. So what it means again is if my housekeeper's kids have to go to a private school to get a really good education, then they're going to be lost in translation. And that's what we have to stop. So then that's why we need to focus on the public education. And those three would be the top ones.
And then, just to kind of wrap that up, I think it's safe to say that you've seen at least Bethany's, efforts in those three areas that you just mentioned right there: the economy, your education, and also the healthcare, obviously, with your nursing background, and then also, being a professor at the university. So good that you would have strength and familiarity in those areas that are appearing to be some of the more pressing issues impacting the people of the state that you're going to potentially represent. I think, again, whichever candidate you're looking at them in a holistic approach, their background, like you're saying, with that CEO example, if you were to hire someone, you want to see their qualifications, but also what have they accomplished during that time. Just because maybe someone is in a seat for a certain time doesn't mean they necessarily performed or excelled while in that seat. I mean, you see turnover, whatever type of job field you're in, anywhere. So I think just really evaluating a candidate as their whole is obviously important for people going forward when you're going to end up voting on these people to represent.
Right. I mean, that's what we expect people to do. And the I think the most important part of this election that makes this one very unique. I will check this to make sure that I'm not mistaken, but I already talked to enough people. Delaware was never being the target by people who are actually running for the office. So in this, they are targeting Delaware. TransPerfect is there after Delaware. So when that happens, we stop the train there. So you actually go after the state for your personal gain, then we stop the train right there. So then I can't even entertain the name of that person uh, because we are trying to make the state strong with economy, with education, with healthcare, but then you are hitting the state's legal system and partnering with those corrupt people in New York and not protecting the state, and then you are actually putting yourself up for the governor position is a huge conflict of interest. So I want people to actually really understand that part. The issue is not who, but who's supporting who is more important. If someone is being supported by the people who are after Delaware, then we kind of stop the discussion right there. So then we just focus on Delaware. So this is about Delaware at the end of the day. So that's what I would say.
It's a very strong statement and a fair one too, because again,
well, I love the state. Like I told you this before. So like if people find this interesting, I wasn't born here, but this is my home. 25 years, I never wanted to live here. So so anyone who's coming after this state is gonna find me and I'm gonna fight them. That's what it is. And I'm gonna support the person who's going after them. That's kind of like where we are with this.
Yeah. Again, important issues, but then as we always mention that ripple effect on things that happen, what you'll see a year down the line, even something in weeks, year, months, whatever, it all has an impact on what we're doing today, what we've done yesterday, what's going to happen in the future. So have to always keep that in mind.
So I know it's Labor Day weekend, so I know people are going to be traveling. Hopefully they're going to have some fun. We want them to be careful when they're out there. The next week we are going to have Trinidad and Tobago, Kyle Evans and Bethany Hall-Long. They're going to join us for a short period of time. So hopefully we can do them all in between the 2 to 3 p.m. time frame. So and then we have our bariatric Friday premiere coming up.
Yep, that's gonna be a free. It's gonna be focused on the care coordination aspect of the bariatric journey. So,
all right. Well, thank you. So we'll be back next week and have a great Labor Day weekend. Bye-bye.